This is the Farm Hop Life podcast, a traveling homestead family. I'm Matt DeRozier. Tonight, I'm talking with Matthew Sargent of Advanced Agroforestry out of Hamilton, Montana. Matthew has a great Instagram posting lots of wonderful content about permaculture and regen ag. How's it going, Matt?
It's
Matthew,
great.
Matt.
Matthew, whatever. As long
Sarge.
as it's not late for dinner. Yeah, Sarge is what most people have called me for a while, so I'll go by any of it. Life's good.
Good, man. I'm glad
here.
we could connect this way.
Yeah.
So I got your contact info from a mutual, Joe Singer down in Victor there, and so I started following you on Instagram, and I was like, oh, whoa, this dude's like into tons of cool stuff. Like, this is sweet. I gotta have him on the show. So yeah, that's why you're here. How did you get started homesteading?
It's I grew up in Colorado, was a professional ski bum for most of my adult life, and that's how I met my wife. I was ski patrolling at Beaver Creek. She worked at Vail. She got in, she did a nutritional course, and she's a holistic nutritionist, herbalist, etc., all that jazz. And the more she got into food, the more we realized that even the healthy food was kind of junk. And as that transition was happening, we were getting priced out of living in Colorado. So at that point, I got hired as a estate manager in Indiana, and all of a sudden, going from 8,000 feet in Colorado, where I would try and grow tomatoes every year, but they'd be in pots, and you'd have to bring them in every night because it'd snow on the 4th of July frequently. So we were in Indiana. I had always dreamed about homesteading and how cool it'd be to be in charge of your own food production. And all of a sudden it was like a real reality, 8,000 feet, like you can homestead, but it looks you're not growing a lot of vegetables and produce. You're really relying on meat products.
Sure.
And the first year I grew tomatoes in Indiana, I had some indeterminate heirloom tomatoes that grew like 12 feet tall. I kept running out of trellising. I was like, holy crap, like this is amazing. And yeah, that's
wild, dude.
Yeah, it was insane. I never knew tomatoes could grow that big. But the different climates. So, that was it, and we got 10 acres in southern Indiana for what you could literally buy a parking spot for in Colorado.
I believe it.
Yeah. So that was the eye opener. And that's where, I got introduced to permaculture. One, reading Guy's Garden, because I wanted to, really get the garden dialed in, and it had a cool cover. Judge books by the cover. It does work sometimes.
Sure.
And I met a really interesting gentleman who was kind of a mentor of mine. I got interested by comfrey, based off of Guy's Garden, and saw a guy on Craigslist selling comfrey cuttings for like $5. And, he answered my phone call. And he was like, "You want comfrey, huh? You and I are going to get along." And he had one of the coolest little urban permaculture plots I've ever seen. And I don't really do the urban thing. I'm not the most social person, but this guy had it so dialed in. And like from the street, if you didn't know plants, you wouldn't know that he was producing tons of food on this, 1/4 acre plot.
Sure.
And that's where I was like, okay, I've read a book. I've seen this. Let's get into it. And I just took the deep dive. I did some coursework with Mark Shepard.
Whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, and that's where
personally, not site.
Yeah, it was like there was 10 of us in the class. He has his own version of a PDC. It's I've totally lost the paper. I'm not one for certificates, but it's basically his version of a PDC. He just doesn't pay whatever the Permaculture Institute is, so he can't call it permaculture. And he focuses primarily on farm scale agroforestry practices. So it was eye-opening. We did a keyline design layout for a gentleman's farm. Basically, if people want Mark to design something for them, they can fund it by having Mark teach a class there. I don't know if that's how Mark still operates, but yeah. So it was a series of 3 different 3-day weekends that we visited this gentleman's property and did a whole water management layout, selected appropriate tree species, and helped define a context that, in this guy's case, led to a more silvopastoral situation than a row cropping situation. He was on a fairly steep landscape, so large scale crop production wasn't really on the ticket. It would have been pretty erosive.
Sure.
Yeah, but at that point, a lot of the no-till stuff wasn't widely available, so maybe he could get away with something at this point. But yeah,
that's amazing to be on site and like kind of like see kind of like the inner workings, like how he's thinking, like what he's thinking about, like how he's seeing the terrain and, you know, what's possible. Dude, all of that would be amazing to experience.
It was pretty wild. And then
what was the location? Sorry, what was the location for that?
That farm was in Ohio, and I can't remember its name. And right at the same time, my wife and I were moving from southern Indiana to right outside of Louisville, and that's where we started our own commercial farm. So that was great. Even though it was leased land, I took everything I learned from Mark and on 12 acres did a keyline design, planted 1,200 trees, and 2.5 years into it, lost my lease.
Oh man!
Luckily, going into it, we did sign as part of the lease agreement that they would pay me whatever the trees were worth if I ever left.
So like $1 million?
Well, they were 3-year-old trees, so they were actually at that point they were probably 4 or 5-year-old trees because I had planted them as 2-year-old bare root trees. So I didn't lose a huge investment. I've been trying to get I've reached out to everyone I know to get me pictures because I know the trees are alive, but all the pictures I get are like just garbage pictures. And I'm like, I can't share this with anyone. Like, show me the tree, show me it's healthy. Like, make it so I can tell if this is one of the chestnuts or the black locust or an apple. But I know they're there. I know they haven't been tended to. I just knowing the landowners, that it's been totally neglected. And that's what I think is the coolest thing about these systems is if you do a good job with the design, the system's going to survive. And
sure.
This is a system that, the grandkids of the owners now are going to be able to go harvest chestnuts and apples from. So I think that's awesome. It's not benefiting me, but it's benefiting someone, which is cool.
Yeah.
And when that fell through, that's what brought me out to Hamilton, Montana. I know you said that you've met Tim over at ABC Acres.
Oh, yeah.
He happened to be looking for a farm manager at that time, and someone had sent me a link to it, and I was like, wait, he has bourbon red turkeys. That's what I raised. I was breeding bourbon red turkeys. He does pastured pigs. That was like my main profit, main money maker in Kentucky. And like everything I did, he was doing it just a slightly bigger scale. And I was like, okay, this should work. And we got out here, and it was a blessing in disguise because I didn't realize how much I had missed the mountains. My daughter had just been born, and there's some awesome things about Kentucky, but when I really thought about it, I was like, wait, I want my daughter to grow up being able to ski and go out on the river and stuff like that.
Yeah.
At this point, and knowing what's going on in the rivers, especially in the Midwest, you couldn't pay me to swim in most of those rivers with the amount of chemicals and garbage in them. So
all the runoff and junk. Yeah.
Yeah. So that got us out here, and after a while, we ended up buying our own land, leaving ABC Acres, and we're off grid outside of Corvallis.
You bought it, then you build it, and me and
my daughter's correcting me. We bought the land, and then I built the house, and she and her grandma enjoy it.
Oh, good.
The rest of our family stayed down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. I was trying to give the summary, but yeah. So we're developing a site, and I'm loving it. It's very challenging. I mean, you're familiar with the landscape. We're in the sapphire, so we're in the sagebrush country. Luckily, there is a spring, and I've developed some terraces, and the tree systems seem to be thriving, and everything that I knew in my head should work is actually like really working. Because it's one thing to plant a tree in Kentucky and watch it thrive, but like in 30 minutes of rain, if you leave a 5-gallon bucket out, it fills up.
Sure.
Around here, you could leave a bucket out for a year and you're never going to get it full of water, unless it's on the roof.
Precipitation's a joke around here.
Yeah.
I'm from Minnesota, and so like if you look up the precipitation amount, it's less than half here than what it is there. So it's like 48 inches of precipitation a year in Minnesota. So like,
yeah,
which makes sense because I'm like, man, it is so dry here. Because I didn't like, you don't think about the climate, like at least not. I didn't. I mean, I was like late 20s when I moved here, so it's like, oh hell yeah, mountains, let's go.
Yeah,
and I'm like, it is damn dry out here, and it's because it's just so humid over there, and it's like 19 inches of precipitation on an average a year here, and so it's you'd gotta like save like every drop of water hits the ground. Like you better have a spot for it. Like it better like get collected and do something for you, because it's a commodity, I guess. You know, like people kill each other over water rights.
As they say, whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting.
That's true. That is true. Very true. Really quick before we move on to the next question, what year were you at ABC Acres?
It's 2022. I'm so bad at remember years. It would have been like 2017, 2018.
That's when I took my tour at ABC Acres. So you were on site when I was there.
Most likely, yeah.
Because I looked up the email. It says October 28th, 2017. And I vaguely remember Tim saying, oh, my farm manager's name is Matt.
Yep, that would have been, that was definitely me.
That's really funny.
Yeah. When I first, so that would have been like when I was first there. He ended up pawning off a lot of the farm tours on me, but at first he was, still kind of feeling me out, getting to know who I was. And when we came out for the interview, my whole family came out, and my wife is an awesome, lovely person, but she is a very socially dominant person. And after the interview, we got back to Kentucky, and he had said that his one reservation was that I seemed real quiet. But I hate it when people interrupt. It's like one of my biggest pet peeves. So I just kind of let the conversations they were having happen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I just didn't want to interject. And I was like, well, I can actually be very outgoing. I just don't want to like override anyone's conversation. So I just let things be. So it all ended up working out, but I think he still thought I was, and at that point he was still really trying to like grow big on YouTube. And he was like, I need someone who's outgoing and can be on camera. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. And I didn't know anything about YouTube. And I watched some of the videos, and I'm like, man, I really should have learned how to edit, especially some of the early ones. I mean, I know I'm saying a lot right now. It's just who I am. I didn't know you could edit that stuff out. So,
right.
I watched some of the videos, and it's super, there's great information in them, but I'm like, man, I am so cringe in this. But that was a big learning curve. That was fun. But yeah, that was an awesome farm. Good times, good people.
Definitely. Yeah. So what motivates you to grow your own food?
I find like it's actually a big part of it originally was the health aspect, being in control of my food supply and knowing what went into it. Because even with the organic produce, having been in the industry for a while, I know that like there's stuff that I don't necessarily want to adjust in growing practices that aren't very sustainable. I am deeply motivated by, oh, sorry. I am motivated by the environmental side. I'm sorry. Poppy, I am really busy right now. I don't know what to do. It's fine. I am so sorry about that.
That's okay.
She got something in her bone broth and was concerned about it. So yeah,
there's that interruption, right?
Yep. The environmental part is a big factor, but the more I do it, the more I grow my own food, the more I find that it's really about liberty. Because if I can produce my own food, fiber, fuel, and medicine, and I have a secure location, it's a lot harder for anyone to, starve me out or force me to do something. I know that seems kind of strange, but the responsibility is incredibly liberating, if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely. Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, when you're hungry and your kids are hungry, you're going to do anything to, even if it's something that goes against your principles or morals, like gotta eat, kids gotta eat, like whatever. I'll do whatever to make sure my kid's fed. But like if you can feed yourself, they take that power away from you. Or sorry, you take that power back.
Take the power back. And one of my biggest motivators now and through the work I've been doing is, homestead handyman is I really like helping the community become more resilient. And, I try not to buy into the fear mongering that's happening in the country right now. But, when you have the president talking about how there's going to be global food shortages, knowing that I'm helping my community members learn how to grow food and install systems that allow them to be more productive and create a food security for themselves, a resilient communities makes it a safer community for me, because not only am I secure with my food supply, if everyone or most of us have a secure food supply, then I'm not a target. I'm not the guy, hey, there's that guy up on the mountain who's got a greenhouse and sheep and whatever else, and we know he's growing food. Every other person, that'd be the goal. Eventually, everyone in the county has their own garden, at least, livestock if appropriate, because if everyone has food security, no one's wanting, you're not a target. So I'm really big into the community thing lately. And just today, like the importance of community really hit me hard. I consider myself a jack of all trades. I know you do handyman work. 2 weeks ago, my well pump fried, and it's like one of the few things that I don't know much about, and jump on YouTube, and all the YouTube videos are like troubleshoot X, Y, and Z. If these are all wrong, it's the pump. Whatever you do, don't touch the pump. Call an expert. I was like, wow, like YouTube, like you can find plans to build a freaking spaceship on YouTube. So if the people on YouTube are telling me call an expert about a well, call a well. I live 6 miles up a pretty fun road. I get to go four-wheeling whenever I come to town. With the rain and snow, it's been either really fun or really miserable.
I was wondering, sorry to interrupt, but like there's a lot of pictures where like it's pictures of like your tires just caked in mud. I'm like, is this dude just dicking around all day? Like, what is he? Like,
no, that's
does he work?
Yeah, no, I do work. That's generally like just pictures of the commute, taking the chains on, taking the chains off.
That makes sense now.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's just my road. So I had 2 well guys like come up and look, and they're like, screw this road. We don't want anything to do with it. I was at the point where I thought I was going to have to do it myself. I had it all prepped. Finally got a third guy to come up. He actually installed the pump. I took really good notes. I'm getting another backup pump. So in like 5 years, 10 years, when it does die, I'll be able to take care of it myself. But between me and the pro, wires got crossed, and I was up till like midnight last night trying to troubleshoot it.
Still.
Yeah. And finally, like today, two of my neighbors swung by, and one of them was a captain he was like a merchant marine for 20 years. And whenever I think I'm a solid jack of all trades, this guy shows in and he's like, come on, son, let me show you how it's done. And
right.
He figured out where the lines got crossed within like 10 minutes. And I was able to take a shower in my own bathroom, which was, neighbors had loaned me their shower, but it's hard to like relax in a neighbor's shower. Yeah, having running water is a blessing. And without a strong community, I wouldn't have had that today. So
very good point.
I want to build the community up so people have those relationships. And I learned a lot today, and try and help my community in the same way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So on your own property where you're at now, that you said you've got a couple different like techniques and methods. You got terraces, and you have do you have a catchment pond? Did I see?
There's yes and no. So we are coming into our 4th summer on the property, and the plan and the layout has been there basically since we made an offer on the property. I knew what the long-term goal was. That said, my in-laws invested in the land with us. The mortgage was, the monthly payments were one thing. Down payment was kind of out of a farmer's budget. So they invested with us, and originally the plan was they were going to live in the house that was on the property, and my wife, daughter, and I were going to erect a teepee or a yurt on a platform and call that home.
Yeah.
My father-in-law started looking up. He didn't even know what a yurt was. He started looking up yurts, and he found these. I hate that he calls it a yurt because it's a freaking roundhouse. But he found these wooden yurts. And he was like, no, I want to live in the yurt now. And so he was like, can you build this for me? And I said, yeah, sure. I've framed, I've built, I can do this. And he went ahead and ordered it. And it was a pre-assembled thing, wall panels and whatnot. I actually think it would have been way faster to just get the materials on site and build from the ground up. But I did that while working full-time at various greenhouses. Did a stint at Lifeline Dairy making cheese.
Oh, cool.
So I was working full-time while building that house, and that really kind of slowed down some of the more growing things that I would rather have done. So the first summer we installed some terraces that utilize the spring. It flows year round. And part of the terrace system has some ponds. They support goldfish, but they're really overgrown puddles. And then I installed some swales in one of the pastures last year. We'll be planting those out this year. But yeah, there was, it was originally a 5-year plan. The yurt took way longer to build than I expected. While trying to work full time. I mean, you can imagine building a house from the ground up largely by yourself. I was able to get neighbors for some of the heavy lifting, and then as cool as it looks, I really can't recommend anyone build a roundhouse. There's a reason most houses are square. Almost everything became just that much harder. You look at the flooring, every 2 feet on the, laminate floor, I was having to change angle cuts where it butts up against the wall. Just everything was that much harder. So it was a slower process than I want, but we have systems in place and systems to install. And now that house has been done, I'm kind of hitting the ground running on getting the rest of those systems fully implemented as budget allows. You know, you got to look at your context. Right. Everyone thinks handymen make good money, but it's, you know, as you know, it's not. I'm not laughing all the way to the bank. And then you take a week off because you're trying to figure out your well. But that's the joy of being self-employed. I am able to do that.
Right.
So, it allows me to prioritize my family.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Huge importance. Yeah. Yeah. The flexibility. And because, like, man, I hate like leaving my wife and kid here every morning, like, you know, at the door, like, daddy's got to go to work.
Yeah.
I don't like, yes, I have to. Like, this isn't a choice.
Yeah.
But
you know, you also got to kind of think you get to go to work because that allows you to provide for them, right? So it's an opportunity to do something for them. And yeah, I'd much rather stay home most days, but generally speaking, that doesn't pay the bills. And growing your own food definitely helps alleviate some of those financial responsibilities. But let's be real, it's 2022. Unless you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, you got to have a source of income somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so growing most of your food, that definitely helps with budgets, but it's not going to solve all of life's problems.
Right. How do your sheep integrate into your design?
So the sheep will be rotationally grazed through what should be a silvopastoral system. You know, as soon as there's baby trees, it's a silvopasture, right? I'm probably going to have to replace most of my herd because they don't seem to respect electric fence. And to put budget-wise, I just don't have the budget to fence off the entire 20 acres with a solid perimeter.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of infrastructure costs.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
So I've got like a 5-acre plot that the previous owner had horses in that's got perimeter fence, but it's amazing. 5 sheep. I've actually been overgrazing and I'm not proud of it, but I keep saying maybe we should butcher them, but I like having the sheep. But every time I put an electronet up, one of them gets tangled in it. And I've currently got Icelandics, so they've got wool. They'll respect it right after they're shorn, but that lasts about 4 weeks. So I either need sheep that, yeah, and I mean, I know like the big guys, Greg Judy or whatnot, they would say, you know, you kill any sheep that jumps out of the fence. And
I was going to ask about that next. Yeah.
Yeah. I should take that to heart. And like, that's what I would tell anyone else to do. We had goats and they were doing the same thing and they went bye-bye.
Yeah.
Because but the sheep, when they get out, they don't tend to be as destructive in the garden.
Right.
The sheep aren't as destructive. The goats, when they got out, they were goats. And as much as I loved the milk, I have to kind of say, if you're a goat person, there's something wrong in your brain.
I've heard that a lot. Yeah.
Come at me if you want. And that was actually one of those things. The first 2 goats I had, we had some dairy goats, miniature alpines, and they respected the fence. They were great. And I was like, all right, let's grow the herd. And we got a couple more and a buck, and the buck taught them all to jump the fence. And once he taught them that, the 2 that were angels to start with became devils, and they all became sausage. So maybe
how was that? That tastes pretty good.
Yeah,
goat
it was
sausage.
Pretty good. Yeah, I liked it. And you know, my daughter's in the corner saying I didn't like it. But
needs more ketchup.
More ketchup. That's generally the answer with a young child. Yeah. So I should probably take my own advice and do that with the sheep and find sheep that do respect fences. I know they exist, but
would you go hair sheep?
Moving forward, I would probably go to Katahdins. We raised Katahdins in Kentucky, and they were
okay.
I never had issues with them with the electric fence. Half the time I never even had the fence on. But it is also, that was also, you know, I was a lot better about a daily rotation. But that was like my job then, whereas now it's like my hobby, right? So especially like I probably should have waited to get sheep until the house was done. And we got on the land and we're like, we want the lifestyle we've had and we're going to build a house at the same time. And, you know, I've got my in-laws like living in the house with us, wanting their own house. So if I'm, you know, messing around chasing sheep or whatnot, my mother-in-law is like staring at me like, come on, get that hammer. Yeah, so I probably should have just grabbed the hammer and taken care of the sheep, but and then people are going to be like, oh, he's so cruel. I would never hit a sheep with a hammer.
More than once.
Yeah. If it takes 2 hits, you're cruel.
Right.
But yeah, so it's like I want the dream of sheep, but I didn't have the time to invest more energy into it. So we've got them there. I know the land will bounce back fine. So yeah, even people who know well, you know, you get in circumstances where you're like, okay, this is what I have for now. I got to work with it. Can't let perfect be the enemy of good, you know? So yeah, at least when I do butcher them, I still know 100% what they have been eating, what they've gotten into, and how they were raised is, you know, opposed to anything I would buy at the store. So, and that's, you know, where it all started. You know, we wanted not only the food security, but the food safety. So
yeah, definitely. Can you give me a couple of examples of what has worked? Like, what did you try that worked well? You know, like you talked about like keyline designs. Was there like a specific spacing that worked well, or was, you know, just that's just like a example like off the top of my head?
Okay, so what has worked really well for us on our property is the terrace system combined with trees, and yeah, they're all still, most of them are young trees. That and the introduction of fungus on the landscape, because like I said, I'm in the sagebrush country. So I've got the terraces harvesting water, the trees providing the numerous climactic benefits that trees provide. And then I mulched everything as heavy as I could with the materials I had on hand and inoculated it with oyster and winecap mushroom spawn. And you've hiked around here, you know what the dirt looks like. It's hard to call especially in the hills, it's hard to call anything up there soil. And, you know, I'd have to dig through my photos. But last summer I have pictures in the terrace where I'm literally taking handfuls and going probably 6 handfuls deep into the dirt. And I mean, up there, it's mineral. It's not dirt. It's not soil, but it's behaving like topsoil. And that's because there's ground cover, dense planting, lots of cover crops in between any of the annual crops. Or we're focusing a lot on medicinal herbs. As I mentioned, my wife's an herbalist. So that's kind of our cash crop. And then the trees to shade things out, because people think of Montana and they think of the brutal cold. If you've never been to the Bitterroot, it's brutal hot in the summer. It's dry.
It is true.
And last summer was...
You'll get a sunburn at 50 when it's 50 degrees out.
Yeah, you'll get a sunburn. And like last summer, it got hot earlier than normal. You know, in June, we were seeing 100-degree temperatures in the valley. I'm on a south-facing hillside in the mountains. My site gets, like, as far as producing my own power, the solar gain is freaking awesome. I produce more power than I can store in the summer. I'm always like, man, we need to buy more batteries. There's a lot of power just going straight into my grounding rod because I can't harness it. But plants have a hard time with that. But getting the trees up there for shade and some ground cover and water and fungus, the site is transforming. And I know over the next 5 to 10 years, that's going to move downhill onto into the baby silvo pasture. I'm not going to be able to afford to mulch that. I can't haul that much mulch up there. That would beat the crap out of my truck, or, a dump truck driver would hate me. They'd say, no, or we did one load, we're not coming back up here. So, in a pasture is, zone 3 or zone 4, you typically don't mulch those. But over time, as the baby trees, and that's all going to be planted mostly with pioneer species, they're going to be dropping leaves, and the fungus is there. It's going to spread. I know that's going to take off. That's not an academic knowledge thing. I've observed incredible growth and transformation in 3 summers from installing some water management and trees. And the fungus is there. I'm not going to need to inoculate anything else. That wine cap's going to spread spores, spread in the ground. And then as far as spacing of tree rows and like a keyline system, I don't even know if you're allowed to use the word keyline. I know the Regrarians people own the term, so whatever. Modified contour design, slightly off contour, rectilinear contour. I don't know what the right word is. I've seen where other people are using lowercase k for keyline, whereas the Regrarians own a uppercase k. I'm not a trademark lawyer. I'm just a guy who's into growing food efficiently and sustainably. So the spacing of rows, in the designer's manual, they'll say that it's going to be based off of your gradient, and more technical than I can probably get without pictures, but basically canopy height, you want your lowest tree, or like your downhill row, to be at the base of the uphill one. So like from downhill, it just looks like a forest, but there is that open space. I'm going to disagree with that. I'm going to say it's based off of context. What do you want to do in between the rows, and what machinery might you want to run in it? If you got a big old tractor and you're thinking, 1/3 of this land I'm going to hay every year, you're going to want to be able to make sure that your 30-foot hay mower can make 2 passes in between rows, or 3 passes. Are you running cattle, or are you running sheep? Because even though you want a tight mob with your cows, you also want them to have room to run and be cows. So if you're saying I'm going to have sheep, maybe you're going to go with 30-foot rows. If you're going to have cows, you might want more 60-foot. In Kentucky, my design, I think 60 feet is generally a good spacing, because it kind of allows for almost any species you would want. If you're going to be using electronet, maybe you want to go 64 feet, since like the small roll of electronet, 64 feet. That way you have one span of that wide.
That makes sense.
You can do like 2 or 3 rows long and another one wide. But a big thing of keyline is that it's curvilinear. So your rows are parallel with each other. 1 or 2 of your rows might be on contour, but the others are going to be slightly on or off contour, but at a low enough grade that water isn't causing erosive damage when it's moving down them. It's just slowly moving, so you can still get that infiltration and not erosive. So it's so context based. It's hard to say 10-foot rows, 20-foot rows. Obviously 10-foot rows, you're looking at growing a forest, not not necessarily a savanna. And really an agroforestry system, you're modeling you're mimicking the savanna ecosystem, which is one of the most prolific, productive ecosystems out there. So yeah, you don't want a closed canopy. I mean,
right.
A lot of permaculturists talk about a food forest, and I think a baby food forest before it matures is a really abundant, productive model. But once that canopy closes, you're going to be getting lots of fruits and nuts from your trees and your shrubs with good design, but that's going to eliminate your annual production. And I know like the hardcore permaculturists say, oh no, it's all about perennials. Well, if you look at a wild ecosystem, annuals are still part of that system. And then if you look at the human diet, 80% of our food is annual crops, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, I love the
Sure.
idea of radically changing the human diet. I know Mark Shepard's big thing was like, well, anything we make with, corn, we can make with hazelnuts, and anything we make with beans, we could make with chestnuts. That's great. But like that takes a radical shift in the way the nation, if not the globe, eats. And I like the idea of radical change, but I don't know that that's a reality. So, and look at hemp. Like everyone thought hemp was going to be the next big product, and a lot of farmers put a lot of money into growing hemp, and a lot of farmers lost a lot of money and watched a lot of hemp rot in the field because we didn't have the processing facilities for the hemp. Like, yeah, hemp concrete is freaking awesome. No one makes it. Hemp plastic is great. No one makes it. So
I feel like there's other like things at play there, like lobbyists and whatnot, like so they
yeah,
don't have like disruptors to the order of things.
to
But
the
yeah,
current paradigm. And I don't like along those lines. I don't know if you've ever met him or crossed his paths. There's a guy that lives in Darby who owns the patent on mixed alcohol fuels.
no,
BioRoot Energy is his company's name, J Tubes.
hmm.
He's a really interesting guy, and he basically
Sounds like
has
it. Yeah.
he has this system design where like he can basically like in his perfect world he would set up refineries at landfills because there's already a system to get trash to a landfill, but everything in your trash can be pushed through this refinery. Your byproducts are basically silica because that's not going to go through it. But anything carbon based, whether it's a petrocarbon or a carbon, can become a ethanol fuel. And he's given me some of this fuel. You can run it in a gasoline engine or a diesel engine. You get better MPG. It's cleaner burning. He can't make headway with anywhere. And you'd think this would be a technology our country would be like jumping on. Like, we have trash. We're really good at making trash, right?
The
What?
best.
Yeah, why not make gasoline out of it? And you can send it through existing infrastructure. Like you don't have to change the pipelines. You don't have to change. Like if a gas station wanted it, they could put it in their diesel tank. They could put it in their gas tank. Like they don't have to change their infrastructure.
Yeah, could you imagine Bitterroot Disposal not having to haul their semis up to Missoula every day, to
or
dump at the landfill there?
or even if they took it to Missoula and at the landfill there was a refinery and then they just had a gas truck bringing it back from Missoula, it'd be a hell of a lot shorter drive than wherever they're bringing it from now. But because of the oil lobbyists and everything, he's had offers for buyouts of the patent, but he wants to control the technology.
That makes sense.
I can't say that I blame him. But Exxon, BP, etc., they're like, this is a huge threat to us. Like this guy can take a waste stream, which is generally a lot cheaper, and turn it into what we produce, and we have to go drill in the Arctic or the ocean, and we have all these OSHA requirements and environmental requirements, and like, yeah, he's got some of the same environmental requirements. Getting engineered spec'd out of one of his refineries, he told me it was like almost $1 billion. So like, even though there's like the tire pile in Anaconda, they want him to put a refinery there. He's like, I can't raise the startup capital to build this infrastructure.
Help us, Elon Musk. Help us.
Yeah, well, and then like the weird thing is, did you know the Missoula landfill is owned by a certain William Gates?
I did not know that.
Yeah, and they
That's weird.
They won't talk to Jay about his technology. This is the little
Hi.
one. Oh, she's hiding. There she is.
Hello.
Hi.
Say hi.
Hi.
So
That's funny.
yeah, we totally sidetracked off of food, but it's a very permaculture friendly conversation because fuel is like, let's face it, like modern Americans were addicted to petroleum. Like
garbage.
Yeah, petroleum and garbage. And like I try and be super mindful of it, but yeah, I think about like, okay, what if, it is the end of the world, or, this Ukraine thing is World War III and gas becomes $20 a gallon, or, diesel's 25. Like, I'm on the hill. Like I'm going to town once a month. You know, so like, yeah, that would be like a massive, like if you were to say there's no more gasoline tomorrow, our country's in the dumpster, like immediately.
Oh yeah.
Like people are, yeah.
Just really quick, the whole 60 million barrels in reserve type thing.
Yeah.
I looked that up. We use 20 million barrels a day. So cool. We have 3 days worth of gas like in reserve. Like that does us almost no good. You might as well just go to zero. Like big whoop.
Yep. So
but should we get back to we could be talking about trash.
I sidetracked it.
No, that I love it. I love it. I just want to be mindful of your time is all.
Yeah. No.
So what have you tried that failed that didn't work well other than having demon goats and like devil sheep?
Demon goats and devil sheep. Let's see. Things that I tried that didn't work besides that, I'd say the biggest thing, and it's, you know, the biggest mistake that I've made and I see other people make is saying they want everything at once. And it's such like a human thing to do. Like, I want the whole permaculture homestead. I want it all integrated. I want this sweet setup where the chickens are doing whatever. And you got to add things one at a time, or like a couple elements at a time. And that's part of what happened with the devil sheep and the demonic goats is we said, okay, well, I was able to manage all of this in Kentucky. I managed a similar thing for Tim. Let's start with all that, and I can build a house at the same time. And that's probably why the goats and the sheep haven't panned out the way they wanted, is it was too much at once on a new site.
Sure.
Whereas if I had been more strategic, and I thought I was being strategic, like there are projects that are coming online this summer as soon as it stops snowing at my house. I don't think you got snow this morning. I had snow this morning.
I don't, just rain. Yeah.
Yeah. I had about 2 inches on my deck this morning. So, it's hard to jump into projects, especially with the well down, but I thought I was being strategic. I still took on more than I was capable of managing at that time. So the biggest thing I can tell people and I tell clients is I try and really define their context with them. Where are you right now? Where do you want to go? Let's build a map. Let's make it a realistic map. Because if you go for it all at once, it's going to be more than you can manage. You're going to get stressed out. And I'm speaking from experience. You're going to get stressed out. Mm-hmm. You're going to be overwhelmed, and it's not going to be fun. If it's not fun, it's hard to maintain a good mindset. It becomes work. All of a sudden, I have to go to work. I have to go weed the garden. I have to do, whatever. And even though, call me weird, I like weeding. I don't do a lot of it because I don't really find it to be a productive use of time. But I digress. Where was I? So yeah, it just when there's too much at once and you don't have systems totally refined, and any new system, even if it's something Jeff Lawton has done or Joel Salatin or any of the big names or myself, you have to make sure that it works on your site within your operational context and your knowledge and abilities, right? So when you throw too much on your plate at once, all of a sudden you're kind of stuck with the eating the elephant proverb. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. If you say, I have to eat this whole elephant, no one can eat an entire elephant. Right. If you say, okay, we're going to eat this elephant one bite at a day, assuming it's preserved or something, so you're not eating rotten elephant. I'm sure that's horrible. I'm kind of sick to my stomach just thinking about
hyenas do it.
Yeah, well, they have a specific gut adaptation that I lack. I don't know about you.
Transplant.
Yeah. So keeping things manageable based off of your skill time, off of your context, which is going to be defined by your skills, your abilities, your time, and keeping things realistic, because we all always want the perfect system, but a good system is way better than a perfect system in theory that's failing in reality because it's more than you can manage.
What? Sorry. You got 10 minutes left?
I mean, she's being good. Yeah, we can keep going.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, okay, which one of these questions do I want to go through? Okay. Just let me know if you got to get going.
I'll start playing the Oscars music, Am I allowed to play music through this? Do they even still do that? I haven't watched TV in so long. I saw highlights of the pimp slap.
The pimp slap. Weak, fake.
I agree.
So what's been the biggest challenge in farming that you faced? Is it time? And
I think time's the biggest challenge for anyone in any field. When it was my own operation in Kentucky, the hardest year we had was the year my daughter was born. My wife, she was born in June. Having a baby in June when you're a farmer is a really bad idea. We're totally blessed to have her, but prior to that, no, she didn't ruin anything. But prior to that, my wife and I, we co-ran the farm. We both, we had our individual tasks, but I basically lost my employee, and for some wild reason in our head, we're like, okay, the market garden, we were doing a little bit of everything. We had the market garden, we had herbs for her herbal products, we had livestock, and it was kind of one of those, the herbs in the market garden, they cash flowed the hogs and the turkeys until butchering time, because when you're raising heritage turkeys that take 8 months to get to butcher weight, you have a substantial investment in them, and you gotta feed them to get them to butcher weight. Even in a pasture-based system, it's kind of the one downfall of omnivores, and I can talk about omnivores as a food source later. But so as far as the market garden, our biggest cash crop had been heirloom tomatoes. And 2 or 3 years in a row at my Saturday market, my farm was voted the best heirloom tomato producer. I took a lot of pride in my tomatoes, and we said, okay, as far as the market garden goes, other guys are making a killing on lettuce. Lettuce doesn't excite me. We're making money on tomatoes. Let's double down on tomatoes. So that summer we went from 200 tomato plants in the ground to 500, and it was me and the pigs and the turkeys, and it was more than I could manage. So we ended up with 300 productive tomato plants. So
it's still a lot.
Yeah, we
50% increase.
Not 50%, 50 plant increase. But yeah, so that was kind of the biggest fail, because almost everything kind of, the hogs and the turkeys did really well that year, but the annual crops that year were lackluster. It was more than I could keep up with, and still try and feel like I was contributing as a father, and not just spending 14 hours a day in the field between planting and harvesting and maintaining and packing up. Farmers markets are super fun, but they're also super exhausting.
We lost your audio.
Yeah.
There you go. I can hear you.
Sorry about that. My wife called, so I'm probably going to have to wrap up soon. That means she's off work. But
okay.
Yeah, so that was not, and that's thinking I'm capable of more than I am, or not realizing the impact that having a child is. Yeah. So, and it goes back to time. And I think regardless of the industry you're in, time is generally the biggest limiting factor. You're a handyman, like you get paid an hourly rate. Like if you were to say,
sometimes, by the way. Okay.
Sometimes. Okay.
This is a side gig.
Side gig. But so you do your handyman thing. If you were to say you wanted to double your income as a handyman, you either have to double your rates or work twice as much, right? Is working twice as much an option? And is doubling your rates an option? Maybe doubling your rates is an option, but what if you want to quadruple your income because you're looking at this new piece of land or something like that?
I guess I'd have to take on the more profitable jobs instead of doing less, and like just do less least profitable jobs. I guess it would be another way to look at it.
But eventually you're going to hit a roadblock where you can only do so many jobs in a week. So then like, and that's just where I'm saying time is our limiting factor, and it's the only investment we make that we can't get back. You can make a financial investment. Hopefully you do well and you get an ROI. When you invest your time, it's gone. And so the more I think about that and the more aware I become of it, the more mindful I am about how I choose to invest my time.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, hey, if you got to go, let's do a part 2. We'll schedule that. I don't know, sometime. Maybe next week. That would be cool. Sooner would be better than later.
All right.
We'll figure it out. And
don't want to leave people hungry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So hey, why don't you tell people where they can find you on your Instagram and whatnot?
So as of right now, it's pretty much just Instagram at Advanced Agroforestry. I don't think there's an underscore anywhere in it. I'm sure there's.
That's okay.
I'm sure there's show notes we can put it in, and then it's also my that's for Advanced Agroforestry, the business I'm trying to build up, coaching and design. And then my personal Instagram is at Sarge, SARGE _Matthew, with 2 T's, because I had a guy write my name with 1 T yesterday. I was like, how do you not know how to spell the most common male name in America? But, whatever. So, yeah, that's where you can find me. I'm working on developing the website for Advanced Agroforestry, but one-man show, so that's probably a couple weeks out. So just find me on Instagram. And I mean, there's a corresponding Facebook page for Advanced Agroforestry, but I don't ever go onto Facebook. So you can find it there. But if you leave me a comment, I'll find it a month later. So yeah.
We'll just link your Instagram then.
Yeah,
that'll be safe.
Perfect.
Do you wanna plug your wife's Instagram too?
She's at 2 Poppies Apothecary. She makes amazing products, teas, salves, all the good herbal goodies. She also does body talk and functional nutrition and a whole laundry list of amazing health and wellness stuff. So check her out. She makes cool needle felted hats of people's dogs and cats that are actually I'm blown away. It was something like one day she was like, I'm going to try and make this. And I was like, dude, you every dog or cat someone sends her a picture of, she nails it. She captures the animal's personality, what they look like. It's not really beanie season anymore, but if you know who doesn't love their dog?
It is at your house, apparently.
Yeah, it is at my house. In the morning, it's still come 2:00 when I headed down the hill today. I was like, okay, it's time to put on a t-shirt.
Right.
But yeah, so that's her. She's awesome. Good stuff. Yeah.
We're going to go to the Mother's Day thing, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
At 2 Poppies Apothecary.
Yeah. So she does her Mother's Day event. If you're in Montana, check it out. This is going to be her 3rd year doing it. And as of today, she's got 30 vendors.
It looks awesome.
Music.
We were looking at some of the merch that's going to be there, and it's like, wow, this is actually quality stuff, not other like made fair type things. Like,
Yeah,
this is
no,
nice stuff.
She doesn't let just anyone do it. She does a really good job curating awesome
Vetting,
creators and
that's awesome.
vendors. It's at Great Bear Native Plants, which is a cool greenhouse. I worked there last summer, and all native plants. So they do a lot of restoration, or they supply for a lot of, restoration and reclamation projects. So if you're into plants and you're in the area, they'll have plants. There's a lot of other people who are going to have, stuff you're not going to be able to find at a nursery. So I think 2 years ago, I bought some like stinging nettle starts. Like, who sells stinging nettle starts? And not a lot of people, but if they do, they're awesome. So,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you so much for the invite.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I'm glad we could do this. I'm dying to talk to you some more. So we'll schedule something.
Yeah, we'll talk soon and get it on the books.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks for being here, Matthew.
Thanks, Matt. Have a good evening.
You too.